Are you ready to navigate the new way to work? Forbes Books presents Dare to Care in the Workplace with Kathleen Quinn Botaw. Here's Kathleen.
Today, I have a very special guest with me, my friend Caryn Kopp from Kopp Consulting. Her door opener service has helped thousands, maybe even millions, but thousands definitely, of businesses secure meeting after meeting so they can grow their companies. Caryn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's so great to be here. Always great to talk to you.
I am so excited, and I want to dive into make sure everybody gets your wisdom today. And by the way, people, you're listening to someone who has won Inc. 5000 3 times and has over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. So she's got something for us to listen to. So tell us how you started your consulting firm and the chief door opener concept.
Well, that goes back about 24 years. This is our 24th year in business. I can't believe it. I was our first door opener, and it's by far my favorite thing to do. And I don't get to do it as much anymore because I run the company now. And we have other very senior level, talented door openers on our team who get our clients the meetings that they can't get for themselves, and it helps them grow. So how did I come up with this? I came up with the idea in the bathroom of a gym where all ideas come from. I had just had my second child, and I was thinking of different ideas for businesses that would help other people and leverage my talent and allow me to work part-time, which I was in the beginning, but now, of course, no. I work way more than part-time now. So this lady calls out, "Hey, I have a promotion agency. Does anybody want any part-time work?" And I come out of the stall and I said, "Listen, I think I'm overqualified because my background is consumer packaged goods, brand management, and business development." So I said, "I think I'm overqualified, but let's talk." So she really was looking for something more administrative. And I said, "Well, here's something I can do for more of a consulting rate. How would it be if I got you in the door with your prospects for the first meeting?" It just flew out of my mouth. And she stopped and her jaw dropped. And she said, "Really? You could do that? You would do that for me?" And I said, "Yes, I can do that. It's easy for me." And she said, "When can you start?" So then about a month or two later, I was at the pool in the summertime, and someone I knew had a business who wanted to grow. And he said, "What are you going to do with all your free time now that your kids are going to nursery school?" And I said, "Well, I've had this business idea where I'm going to get my clients in the door with their prospects for the first meeting." And he had the same reaction, jaw dropped. And he said, "You can do that. Would you do that for me?" And I said, "Sure." And so on and so on and so on. So that's how the concept began, of a senior level business developer, me, representing my clients out in the market as if I was a member of their team, getting them the meetings that they couldn't get for themselves. And then because I was giving them these meetings and these opportunities, they were able to close more sales. It seems like when you get somebody in front of the right decision maker, they can usually do a pretty decent job explaining what they do, why it matters, and get the next step. The problem people face is getting these meetings, and that's the problem we solve.
That's awesome. And everybody needs you. Full disclosure, we have worked with Caryn and her company with great success. And many people I know have too. And
Thank
you
you.
said something really interesting, Caryn. Why can't some of these people get the appointments themselves? Where's the block?
Well, this is a fascinating study that I've done over these 24 years, and that I boil it down to what I call TTD: time, talent, and desire. Some people just don't have the time to get more doors open because they've been successful getting the doors open, but their time is consumed with the nurturing part of the relationship, the proposals, and the closing, which is really important. After all, that's what everybody's looking for. But then they can't keep the top of the funnel full from a sales perspective with more new opportunities, especially in a way that will help them grow. So they may just not have the time. The second T is talent. Some people don't have the talent. It's really DNA more than anything
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to start a conversation with someone they don't know. It's just not in their DNA to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If they are at a buffet line taking some ZD at a networking program, they might be able to start up a conversation, but they can't start up a conversation, or they're not comfortable with it. Especially when companies want to swim upstream, they want to have meetings with higher level decision makers. Maybe they target managers, but they really need to target the C-suite or SVP, VP, and they're just not comfortable there. So it could be that sometimes companies want bigger deals, bigger companies, a new market, things like that. And it's just completely out of their experience, and they don't have the talent to get those kinds of doors open.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the talent piece of it. And then the last one, the D of TTD, is desire. Sometimes people have the time and they have the talent, but they'd just rather put a stick in their eye than do this part of sales. And even people who are tasked with this job as part of their job may not love this part of sales. And so, for those situations that exist, we are here to help our clients get in the right doors. Our people don't say things like, oh, I have to make phone calls. They say, I get to make phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they really enjoy doing is starting these conversations with these decision makers to help the decision makers understand why saying yes to the meeting is going to be the best decision they make all week.
That's so great. And why do you think why do you think sales has such a bad rap?
Because a lot of people do it badly. Let's just put it that way. I have a slide in one of my presentations for one of my seminars that shows a person with a nose like Pinocchio, and it says, "Don't do sales badly." And a lot of people do. They they are so busy trying to sink in numbers and tasks and activities that they forget the human element of sales. People think about a prospect as a word prospect or lead or decision maker. Even from marketing, they may think about these people based on a persona, but it's not a persona, it's a person. And too many people skip over the human aspects. I was just talking with somebody this morning, and he's not getting in as many doors as he wants. So I asked him, what is he doing that's working and what's not working? And he was telling me how he, as a very senior level sales guy, sends out just emails. They're targeted emails, but they're emails. I said, have you tried calling? And he said, no. And I said, why? And he just kind of looked at me as if that hadn't occurred to him.
Mm-hmm.
But email alone doesn't work, phone alone doesn't work, but the combination certainly does, where you add the human element, the voice behind an email to bring life to the whole situation. People just skip over that part.
Well, I love humans because I'm in the people business, right? So this
That's
is
right.
this is fascinating to me, that human element versus referring to, them as targets or prospects or leads. Can you unpack that a little bit more for our listeners? Like, tell me more how they get in the headspace of really treating every prospect as a human. How would they prepare themselves for that?
So that's a very interesting question. And we have a trademark process for this before any outreach begins called Moment of Yes. And it's all about the combining the offering with the target and the message, because those three things have to work together before you get to delivery. Language plus delivery equals outcome. And so when we're thinking about what do we say, we first have to think of who are we talking to? Who are the kinds of people, the kinds of companies, what are they facing that would make them feel more urgency than others in taking a meeting and having next steps. So we take this wide world of prospects and we look at it a little differently than most. Most people, when they're thinking of which prospects they're going to pursue, will look at size of company, level of decision maker, geography, industry niche, and that's a good place to start, but it's not where you end. Then we have to figure out, okay, within that group, how do we narrow down this wide world of prospects? We can look at which of these prospects are more likely to feel urgency for a reason. Is there new legislation that just went out, new regulations where companies in a particular area or industry have to now abide by something in a certain time frame? That might create urgency, just as an example. Which prospects in that group would also find our clients to be the obvious solution? Once they know that our client exists, they would never take a step without our client in the consideration set. And then which ones of these prospects will also willingly pay what our clients want to charge for their products and services? Because not everybody who should buy on value does buy on value. And if you can remove the people who are less likely to buy on value from your prospect list, if you sell on value, then you will be more efficient in who you target. So we're making it a smaller world. Once we identify who we're talking to, then we have to figure out, what do we say that's so meaningful to these people that they would knock 3 people off their calendar and make room for our client? That's where
Mhm.
sales messaging has to be these days. And
Mhm.
most of the time, people are not thinking through the target in the way I just talked about, and they're not thinking about what they say and what they write in an email in a way that I just talked about. So let me just stop there and see if that unpacks some of this for you, and then I can talk about how the door opener specifically gets ready.
I think it's fascinating because you're focused on the who, the audience, really the audience that you are really trying to build a relationship with, their challenges, their sensitivities versus the product or service I want to sell. It's kind of reverse engineering, isn't it, Karen?
Well, I wouldn't call it reverse engineering. I think a lot of people would call it reverse engineering. For me, it's engineering.
Right. But most people train their sales team, this is our stuff, our products or services we have to sell. And they spend all their time on the what versus the who. That's why I say reverse engineering from the perspective of the audience you're actually focused on. It's brilliant.
It's necessary, because if you don't do this, then the outreach that you might do may miss the mark. And so sometimes I've found that companies who deserve to win don't win because their sellers don't have the best words. The person with the best words wins. And I've
Hmm.
seen it over and over and over again. So when companies bring sellers in and they don't provide them these tools of why somebody would say yes to a meeting, and here are the themes. It doesn't have to be a script. Life doesn't happen according to a script. But here are the themes that these prospects are more likely to say yes to, and it's written in a certain language format for door opening, which is different than the language format you might need for the first meeting talk track, or for presenting a proposal, or for getting to the close. So there's a certain format. Then what happens is our clients will approve that. We bring our clients through the exercise of narrowing the who and then creating the themes of language that prospects would react to, and then our client approves that. We develop the prospect list. We have a research department internally. So every prospect on the list is a prospect that deserves our client's time and attention. No waste. And then our door opener will not just learn the language. I would use the word internalize, because when they get a prospect, the right person on a call, they have maybe a minute and 15 seconds to get this right, and they don't get another chance. So
No.
they have know cold the different nuances associated with what can happen in that minute or minute and 15 seconds, and be able to weave to the left, weave to the right, pivot in the conversation in order to get an outcome, which is the meeting.
You were just saying weave to the left, weave to the right. And in my head, I went, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. Sorry. I did a little cheer for you in my own little head. That is
That's
so
so funny.
cool.
I always think of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's a little step to the left.
Yeah, you're so cute. Well, so, hey, how does texting and video play into this process for your door openers and your clients?
Well, that's a great question. So texting is now part of what we would do in order to open up communication with a prospect, but we don't do it as the first outreach. Before the pandemic, I would never have suggested somebody use that in the door opening process to get a meeting. I
Mm-hmm.
would not have recommended it. It's a little creepy and it's a little intrusive, but things have changed. And now with the hybrid work environment, or many people still working remotely, it has
Mm-hmm.
become very acceptable for decision makers to receive calls or texts from people they don't know. But we don't recommend doing it as a first outreach. Definitely one-to-one phone, one-to-one email, well done, not fluffy, not long, make your ask clear. Uh, After maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3 times of that, where you're calling somebody's work phone, you can then let them know you're going to try their cell phone to see if that's an easier way to connect. And texting is part of that. None of this can be salesy. I don't need to tell you that. But
Mm-hmm.
often people do make it salesy, and that's when they would typically get ignored. The cell phone is really interesting even as time goes on. After the first meeting is set, we often suggest our door openers and everybody else say to the prospect, in case the technology fails, let's exchange cell numbers, should you not have it already.
Mm-hmm.
And when the pandemic hit, the technology was failing fairly often. Now it's not failing, but you can still say that. And what does it do for you if you don't already have their cell phone number? You now have it and you have permission to use it. So if the prospect is late to the meeting that you're having, typically Zoom, Teams, video on, if they're late to that, you can text them, I'm on the Zoom line. Can you join? And if
Mm-hmm.
they're running late, they'll be like, kind of like they got caught with like a hand in the cookie jar kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they'll come later in the sales process. Let's say they go silent. You submit a proposal, you talk them through it, you set a next meeting, but then for some reason the meeting needs to be rescheduled and they go silent. A lot of people have trouble with that. Texting, can we have 10 minutes at the end of today to talk about X, Y, or Z? Sometimes the prospects will say yes to a request like that, even if they can't say yes to a full half-hour meeting. So
Sure.
using that cell phone, once you have permission to use it, is a very powerful tool later in the process. And sometimes I'll talk to people who say, "Oh, I had this great meeting. We submitted a proposal. The prospect was really, really interested, and then it was crickets." And I'll ask them, "Have you called them?" Because they
Mm-hmm.
email, email, email. Did you call them? No. Did you text them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no. So sellers are not using all the tools that they have in their toolbox in order to continue the conversation with prospects in a way that I would find effective. They're very busy searching for, high tech kinds of fun things to incorporate, and not using some of the lower tech, very simplistic relationship building techniques which work. So I really recommend people do that. There was another part of your question. Oh, you were talking about video.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Video is very important. You don't get a meeting using video. You get it using phone, email, uh, well done LinkedIn, occasionally a mailed package, but not really, because a lot of people are still working remotely. But the video is a very important component of the first meeting. It's interesting. We have programs going on across industries, and the prospects want of the first meeting to be virtual still. If the second meeting is in person, it's in person, but the first meeting, the prospects want to be virtual. And video on and well done video is really important. It's actually very interesting, the relationship that you can now create with somebody different than if you went to their office. And although you're in person, there's a desk in between you. When you call them and they answer from their home office, you can see the pictures behind them. You can see all sorts of things. You see their kids on their laps sometimes. I've seen a cat walk across someone's keyboard and you see the tail going by. And all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, you have a much more human relationship than you
Mm-hmm.
would if you were in a conference room or where there's a desk in between you. And so
Absolutely.
if people embrace that, they can leverage that to create a better relationship faster than they would when they go in person.
Yeah, because it's all about relationships. But you used a word earlier that I'm not sure everybody knows the definition to. So define too salesy. What do you mean by that?
Oh, two salesies with the Pinocchio nose. Um,
Yes.
well, this is somebody who clearly skips over any relationship building and just thinks because they're calling, somebody should take their call. And because they're calling, somebody is going to sign on the dotted line. They don't realize that the people who they're trying to develop relationships with, if they have a need, they have a vendor or they're handling it internally and they're probably somewhat satisfied. So the person who is too salesy is pushing their way into the relationship. Sales is a slow dance. People don't want it to be so, but it is for the other side. I mean, think of what it's felt like for you when you had somebody who thought that they were further along in their relationship than you felt they were.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
It's
I
like
would
a
call too salesy.
it's a waltz versus a samba, right? If we're talking about a dance, a waltz versus a samba. That's so great. And now it's time to shimmy into a break. But coming up in the second part of my talk with Caryn Kopp from Kopp Consulting, Caryn shares some advice for the next generation of entrepreneurs.
For those people who are thinking of starting a business, because a lot of times people say to me, what advice would you give to somebody who's starting a business? I say, make sure that you're selling something that people will pay for. Because there are a lot of good ideas out there, but not every good idea is something that people will pay for.
This has been Dare to Care in the Workplace. To connect with Kathleen, go to KathleenQuinnBotaw.com. Kathleen's book, Dare to Care, is available wherever books are sold. Dare to Care in the Workplace is a production of Forbes Books.